Manual driving, coming in clutch. One of the most anticipated aspects of becoming an adult for me was finally being able to drive. At this stage in our life, most of us either have our license or are in the process of getting it. And if you guys are anything like me, you cannot wait to finally buy your first car. Of course, having a tight budget, as most of us do, being students, I began to steer away from the automatic cars and get into manual cars. Based on a survey conducted by experts at Aero Auto Parts, not only does the manual version of a car reduce the buying price by roughly $2,000, but it also increases fuel economy by roughly 15%. This, in student terms, means saving money on gas. In this presentation, I'll be teaching you how to shift gears from automatic to manual and save money in the process. To do this, we will discuss my three-step action plan, the three S's: starting, sustaining, and stopping. Some important terms before we get started. I believe that it's very important to discuss and define the parts of a manual car that differ from automatic cars. Obviously, the idea behind a manual car is you shift the gears manually, hence the name. To do this, two important parts are worth mentioning: the gear shift and the clutch. The gear shift is what lets us change gears from neutral to first and then all the way up to fifth or sixth depending on what type of car we have. Neutral is when the neutral gear is engaged, the gas pedal doesn't work and the car can roll forwards, backwards, and if you're rolling backwards, I would suggest pressing the brake. Then, as you're driving, you manually shift from first gear to fifth gear based on your speed and how fast you're going. And then this is where the clutch comes in, the pedal on the left as shown by the arrow. Every time you switch gears, your foot must be pressing on the clutch or you're going to hear a really loud and obnoxious screech, which kind of sounds like a ride at La Ronde. Now that we are familiar with the terms and the parts of a manual car, we can get into the first of the three S's, starting the car. This is perhaps the most difficult and probably frustrating part of learning to drive a manual car, but it's also the most rewarding once you finally master it. So to start off, you need to have the car in the neutral position as we discussed earlier, so you can insert the keys. Once the car is in neutral, insert the keys, press the clutch all the way down, this is important, and then turn the keys and start the car as you would normally. Now this comes the difficult part, as explained in my pictures, which is my mom in my old 2007 Nissan Versa, and this is shifting the weight between the clutch and the gas. As shown in this picture, you want to start with all your pressure on the clutch and nothing on the gas, and then slowly release the clutch and press on the gas until the opposite happens. This requires extremely delicate and precise timing, and it honestly is learned through trial and error, but once you've mastered the timing, there's nothing more satisfying than feeling the car start to move. The third step of the three S's action plan is to sustain. This, in simple terms, is keeping the car moving. Not long after you start moving in the first gear, the car will begin to grumble and growl at you. Once you hear this noise, which is the revving of the engine, this means that the car is moving too fast for the gear that it's in, the first gear, and needs to be upshifted. This is where we change gears. To do this, press down on the clutch once again, and then move it into second gear using the pattern that is shown on the top of the gear shifter as shown in the picture. Once the shift is in place, slowly release the pressure on the clutch while adding a bit of pressure on the gas. Once again, timing is everything, and eventually the loud noises and jerking motions will start to disappear as you get the timing down. Lastly, as your speed keeps increasing, you once again hear the engine rev, and then you repeat the process to shift into a higher gear. Lastly, stopping is the third and final step, and arguably the most important. In order to start the process of stopping, we need to slow down. To do this, follow the procedure for shifting up a gear, but instead shift down. As your speed decreases and you are in gears 2 or 3, it's time to put the car into neutral. This is the central of the gear shifter as shown in the picture by the arrow. To do this, once again, press down on the clutch, never forget that, and move the gear into the middle. From here, start braking just as you would in an automatic car and come to a safe stop. Before getting out of the car, it's extremely important to do these two things after turning off the car, which are two things you do not do in an automatic car. Since a manual car in neutral can roll front and backwards, it's essential to put on the handbrake every time. Once this is done, take the keys out, of course, and then a little trick is to put the car back into first gear after everything is off and the handbrake is on, in order to kind of have a extra precaution against the car rolling backwards or forwards. And there you have it, your first frustrating but successful manual adventure. So that was how to drive a manual transmission car and my three-step action plan. As you get better, always remember the basics that we have discussed here today. The three S's: starting, sustaining, and stopping. Now you can look forward to all the joys and the control and freedom that comes with driving manual, and a bit of extra pocket change in your bank account. Thank you.